name is Brian Peete. I'm the director of the Riley County Police Department, and I sincerely and wholeheartedly thank you all for taking your time out to be here and for the opportunity just to speak directly with you all on concerns and things that are going on in our community, and to be here to be answerable to you. So we're going to go over a few brief things, but before and as we do, I want to thank members of our team for setting this up and for the attention that we want, or the access for you to us to do this. So without any further ado, these are the general things I'd like to speak about. And of course, I'm here to answer any questions that you all may have. Easy questions, hard questions. I was asked earlier if I was a little bit nervous. I'll never get nervous, because the only thing that is I just tell you the truth. And if I have nothing else if I tell you the truth, I got nothing to be nervous about. So we're gonna talk a little bit about our plans. The last discussion that we had was talking about targeted violence during that time that we had some incidences going around in the country regarding targeted violence. That's the newest word for active shooter violence in the law enforcement area. Talk about crime statistics from last year. Talk about the Homelessness Services Providers Task Force, the update on that, and moving forward, and how we're going to work with our community partners for this. And some of that that came out of that was what's going on down here in the neighborhood, down here in the historical district. So I want to also talk about how the Riley County Police Department is going to address any concerns that members of the community, people who live here, and businesses have, and how we balance all of that out. And then general safety, and there's been a lot of calls, or a lot of asked questions, and when do I exactly call the police, especially when it comes to things like mental health crisis. So we'll talk about that. So for preventing targeted violence, unfortunately it's a social norm that we have to have conversations, we have to have laws, we have to have regulations talking about active shooter drills and things like that in school. So the training that's out there, especially for first responders, mainly revolves around tactics, and it mainly revolves around giving people who could be victims of targeted violence pointers, if you will, on what to do to keep yourself safe. So we're looking at incorporating, or we are incorporating, policies and procedures when we respond to threats of targeted violence. So threats could be anything from somebody put something on Facebook saying they didn't like this person, they didn't like a spouse, because the majority of targeted violence is actually domestic violence related. So what do we do to that? How do we try to head off a crisis before it realizes itself into an active shooter incident? So with that policy includes, or mainly revolves around, behavioral threat assessment teams. And that means law enforcement, community mental health providers, and prosecutors will work with whichever individual or organization that may have gotten a threat. So if it's at a school, if it's at a job, we will work with those people, try to get as much information as we can to determine if this is a mental health crisis, if this is just something that's relatively benign, or if in fact we do have somebody who is actually planning violence against someone else, and then what those repercussions are. So when you take those proactive steps, you minimize the chances of actual targeted violence happening. So from that, we do have very strong relationships with other law enforcement agencies, ensuring communication back and forth. And the most important thing is, we all need everyone's eyes and ears. If you see something that doesn't look right, if you hear something that doesn't look right, please let us know. But that's a two-way street, because we need to make sure we earn your trust. In the words of law enforcement, it's legitimacy. If you actually believe that the Riley County Police Department is here to do good and that will protect people, that increases our odds of cooperation. That you letting us know if you see something going on in the community and you trust us enough to not overreact to it, but instead to look for ways to help people that need help, but protect the community if there is a need for that. So outside of that, for buttoning up that last conversation, are there any questions I can answer for anybody regarding the Riley County Police and targeted violence? Yes.
Okay, so who would we call for various situations, like you said, if we see something, to say something, and yes, there are like various levels, but if I were to see a Facebook post saying like, oh, I hate my ex-wife, and then other slanderous comments, like I wouldn't call 911, but it seems to be saying that's the information you'd be looking for.
Yes, anything that, because that's how it starts off. Everybody has a piece to the puzzle, some small, some large. But there are anonymous reporting systems that you can use. There's Crime Stoppers. You can reach out to them. You can even actually call our dispatch and text them the post that you see, and we can take it from there. So we always do respect anonymity.
Okay.
Okay.
Is the dispatch number on the website?
Yes, there's a non-emergency number, and then there's always 911.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional? Yes.
Did you just say targeted violence is kind of the new terminology for active shooter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, all right, then I'll move on to the next topic of discussion, which are giving you the statistics of crime within the community. Now, before I do this, statistics can be anything that you want them to be, depending on your perspective. What I want everyone to know is that it's not lost upon us that behind these numbers, there are actual living and breathing people. So I don't want you to think that I'm saying, okay, hey, this is down, that's down. It doesn't mean anything to the person that the crime happened to. So we keep all that stuff in mind, but this is also a benchmark in which how we're judged or which how we're looked at from our community if we're doing our part in trying to keep everyone safe. So in 2025, for our Part 1 crimes, Part 1 crimes for law enforcement, when you think of serious crime, those are Part 1 crimes for sexual assault, aggravated batteries, things involving weapons. Those are Part 1 crimes in general. So if you lump them all into one, for 2025, we were 16% below the 5-year average. So when the Riley County Police Department reports to the law board, we give statistics based on over the previous 5 years. How are we doing with that as a benchmark? And as you'll see here, the 5-year averages, the minimums, the lowest that we've seen will be in purple, the averages are in green, and the max are in red. So for Part 1 crimes, we are down 16%. For Part 1 violent crimes, the more violent aspects of those, we're about 2% below the 5-year average. For robbery, and this is information that's on the website. If you all like, we can put links to it as well on our Facebook social media posts that you'll be able to look through all these to ask any questions that you have. But in the interest, again, of time, I just want to show this, and please, at any given point in time, stop me and ask any questions that you may have. Come on, Scott. Do you need a chair? Okay. Him, I ain't at him. Okay, so for robberies, unfortunately, we were about 21% above the 5-year average. What we found in crimes like this is when we deal with this segment of a population, especially with crimes like robbery, it's a small percentage of our community. So often when we make arrests with robbery cases, with home invasion, thefts, we'll normally see, if we got the right person, we'll normally see those crimes going down. So we've made a lot of arrests related to these robbery situations, but this is something that we still keep in mind. For aggravated assaults and batteries, we were 5.7% below the 5-year average. For Part 1 property crimes, again, when we're thinking about theft or things of that nature, somebody getting from your vehicle. You good? Okay. We were about 18.4% below the average. For vehicular burglaries, which I was getting to, we're 51.5% below the 5-year average. Sometimes, a lot of times in our cases that we see in the community, thefts from vehicles tend to be opportunity. So we ask you, ladies, gentlemen, don't leave wallets, don't leave purses, don't leave money open where someone can see it. If you got gifts for somebody, don't leave them out there in the front. And especially if you have weapons in the car, lock your vehicles, lock your trunk wherever you decide to put them. because that's the one thing that we don't want, someone to steal a weapon from you and then for that weapon to unfortunately be used in the community. For DUIs, we were about 39, well, we were 39 or 38.9% below our 5-year average on DUIs. But traffic accidents, 14% above the 5-year average, as well as preventable traffic accidents, 9.2% above the 5-year average. When we say preventable traffic accidents, we mean that distracted driving. That there was something that's like, you know, I mean, sometimes we all get distracted, but we've all been there. Sometimes some of us have done it. Unfortunately, it hasn't, you know, we didn't get any trouble or we didn't get any traffic crashes. But we want to let the community know we're going to be focusing on traffic this year. But when we do focus on traffic, we look, or we don't chase quotas. We don't look for discipline. We don't look for anything like that. We look to try to educate people on the dangers of that so we can affect behavior. We don't think that just giving people tickets and tickets and tickets and putting some folks in worse situations than they are, making it even worse for them. So we talk about that when we do a traffic stop to that. So that's, when I say we're focusing on traffic, you will see more officers out there doing traffic enforcement, but I'm not giving them a mandate saying anybody who's going above 6 miles an hour with the speed limit, give them a ticket. It's all officer discretion, but the whole point is to work with our community instead of our community fearing us. So, yes?
So when you look at the crime that, not to try to do things like that, do you ever like share that with, I'm gonna just pick Douglas, Shawnee, another county, and say, okay, so if we have a high percentage of people who are coming to town and committing crimes, how does that compare by county or by state or whatever? How does that compare to like Shawnee County, I guess from a percentage standpoint? In other words, if we have this problem, surely Erie County, Saline, Reno may have the same problem? It's a stretch, but.
No, I think I understand what you're saying. So you're also like, what is it like in other communities, and are we seeing like national trends or statewide trends, and how we're working together to stop it? Am I summarizing that right?
I'm making the assumption if you're a criminal and you live in Saline County and you're coming over to Salina, you're also going down to Reno. You're also going over to Ellis. I just assume. So once you catch them, obviously they have a history, and they, you know, because you share that data. I just was curious if there's a way to compare, or does it matter on a national basis, or on a regional basis, or within the state of Kansas?
So I can tell you that we all report, local law enforcement agencies do report numbers to the KBI, and in turn the KBI reports them up to the FBI. So normally it'll be like a year almost lag time that you'll be able to see the differences in property crimes between counties on those websites. So we can put those out once they become available if they already aren't. But then that gives you an idea of trend. In some cases, I'm just gonna flat out say it, Manhattan and Riley County is a great community. You have a lot of people here who are, who want the best for everyone. So we tend to be isolated, I would say almost in a bubble, if you will. We're further away from I-70. But if you have to purposely come into Manhattan to come into Riley County. So when we do see some of those bad actors, we do reach out to our partners in Salina or in Topeka and work and try to figure out, especially if we're conducting an investigation, say it's narcotics, and we have a name and we know where this person's at, we can do criminal search histories, find out where they've been active before, reach out to those folks, and then work the investigation from there.
I have a question. Are these statistics, are they based off of arrest records or convictions that y'all have made in here in the RCPD?
These would be more along the lines of calls for service.
Just call for service.
Calls for service, and then which cases were opened. So yeah, we don't have our arrest statistics or closeouts on this one. We're just talking about the crimes that have been reported to us and how we've, again, know what these crimes are and we're working them.
I have a
Yes.
question. Yes. There was, or possibly still is, a community member who has been going around to homes trying the doors at night. It happened to my parents. I can't remember how many months ago, but a few months ago, it was last year. RCPD never got back with them, that they found or had a suspect. Are cases like attempted burglary or break-in, how long are those open for or investigated before you either close it or put it on the back burner until you get another case from the same person?
Well, sometimes it depends. So if for the more intricate cases that involve a lot of more investigative work, looking at backgrounds and things to that effect, those cases tend to go the investigative section. So we'll have detectives working on them. The detectives are ranging anywhere between 20 to 30 cases per detective. Other cases that may not statutorily rise to a level that requires us to look at a lot of different elements, then the officers themselves will work those cases. So if this was while it's a very, very serious crime, if it's something, the only thing that we would have there would be somebody testing doors, so we would work with the detectives and try to figure that out. The officers will run that to the ground to the best of their ability. We try not to do anything that's cold case, but we work on incorporating technology to help us solve a lot of cases, and a lot of that also involves working with the technology that you all may have. So if your parents had a Ring camera, that helps us out. So if we know that the neighbors have a Ring camera, that can help us identify the people involved. We should have gotten back to you all. We should have gotten back to your parents. And if you wouldn't mind, after the meeting, we can find out a little bit more information so we can track that down, and we can have the officers who are working the case reach out to you.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions that folks may have regarding the statistics? All right. So, Homelessness Services Task Force. So back in June, we received several complaints. This is how it came out from our local businesses regarding we've been trying to help people, and that's where that second question or that last question comes in. When should I call 911? So there were a lot of business owners, homeowners, other folks who were dealing with individuals who we believe to be homeless or who were homeless, and saying that, hey, we're having issues, whether it's drug use, whether it's fights, whether it's defecation in certain areas. I've reached out, I've tried to help someone, it's still not working. When do we call 911, or what do we do? So based on the volume of complaints that we had, we were blessed enough to work with our community partners, and a lot of organizations came in and sat down at the table. How do we work this issue? We don't want to look at it as, well, first and foremost, having a mental health illness is not a crime. Being homeless is not a crime. What we're looking at is how do we help people get better? What resources can we help folks to get better? What can we provide? And I think that we have a lot of community partners that work well to that. And our role in this one is we want to be trauma informed, and we don't want to criminalize these other different things, but we do have to address behaviors. Someone in a well-to-do community may not be dealing with this, but someone who's working and living here in the Yuma area, it's not right. Everybody should be able to live in a community where we're responsive and compassionate to one another, but at the same time, we have to hold behaviors accountable, okay? So that's what this group got together to do. And throughout this group, there was a lot of conversation saying we don't want this to be a typical Manhattan situation in which we all get together, we talk about something, and nothing ever comes of it. I'm here to tell you, I think we have a lot of compassionate people that are part of this group, and everybody's ready to make things work and make things move forward. So this task force will be permanent to address ongoing issues of homelessness, to do our best to try to help those in our community, and to find out where the gaps of services are, whether it's money, whether it's facilities, whatever the case may be. Again, using data, remembering that people are people, but what do we need in this community to try to address this? Because a vast majority of people who are homeless don't want to be that way. And there are some people, there's a small segment of populations like, leave me alone, I want to do my own thing. But there are also other people who are suffering from, again, mental illness, substance abuse, addiction, those different types of things. How do we get people help? That's someone's mother, father, brother, sister, and that's how we look at it. You cannot dehumanize people who are going through this thing, but again, we have to look at behavioral issues and accountability. So we're going to concentrate on criminal and disruptive behaviors. while steering individuals and their families towards the resources to help. That's the Riley County Police Department's role in this. Our pledge is we are not going to criminalize this. If we have situations in which there's someone who, like that gentleman outside, they need to be arrested. He needs help. And we're not going to arrest him for that. Okay, so, but I think that also goes back to some of the questions that people have. I don't want to feel guilty, but somebody's having a mental crisis right now and it's making me feel uncomfortable. And some people call 911 and because they're afraid of it, but it's up to us to discern and say, okay, I understand that made you a little uneasy, but it's not a criminal issue. We will work with our stakeholders to do this. So with all that being said, what has come out of the meeting is the Flint Hills Wellness Coalition will be leading the charge, and then all the other agencies will work with the Flint Hills Wellness Coalition to provide wraparound services to individuals who are in need of them. So once it's identified at one agency that, so say for example, with RCPD's role, if we go to a call for a welfare check, we go to a call for a domestic situation, when we walk through the door, if we see that there's no food in the refrigerator, if we see that the oven door is open to try to heat the home, we will reach out to one main contact, which would be the Flint Hills Wellness Coalition, and say, here's what we got on this call for service. No more, not that we've ever done this, but typically in other communities, you'll say, well, it's a law enforcement issue, we can't share that information. When you do that, people get hurt, people die, and people suffer. So we have to share information, as much information as we possibly can with each other to get people help. So when we see those different things, we reach out to that person coordinates with other resources. We bring everything that we have in the community to bear to help that person move forward. And that's just one example of what our involvement would be. Does anyone have any questions about what I spoke about so far? Okay. So right now I'm giving you a heat map, if you will. The hottest color is going to be the brightest color. This is going to be where the majority of calls for service generate from within our community. So if you look here, we have 11th Street, Martin Luther King. This corridor right here, I think that's Point. So you're seeing where the majority of the calls for service are coming from. And that again will dictate to us where we're going to focus our presence and where we're going to focus our efforts. And again, we're not coming out there. Presence, broken windows theory. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the broken windows theory. Okay, for those who haven't, it's basically saying if you break a window, we're going to charge you to the best of our ability to get you out of the community because the smallest crime is going to turn into the biggest crime. We don't subscribe to broken windows theory in the Riley County Police Department. So we're just going to try to figure out what folks are dealing with. How do we get them help and resources? If it's a criminal activity, we will do the investigation. We will hold people accountable. So for Yuma Street, the historical data, you'll see the different types of calls for service, welfare checks, unwanted subjects, speak with an officer, suspicious person, domestic violence, animals at large, just basically asking questions for information, found property, abandoned vehicles, and larceny. These are the types of calls for service that we are typically seeing in these concentrations. And again, you'll see the heat map to the areas. We can again provide this information out to folks, but here to give you an idea, 4th Street runs here, Houston is here, Pierre is here, Colorado, and Yuma Street. So we can bring these numbers all the way down to the day and the time that we see the most calls for service. And we are in a data-driven police department, so that's what we use to try to figure out where we're going to put our staffing areas at and how we're going to work with partners to work towards this. So again, with crime, it's personal, but I've been in communities, I grew up in one, where these different calls were worse. And that is a testament, I think, to this community, to shared values, to people looking out for each other, and people doing their best for each other. So I'm grateful I live in this community. We've gone a long way. We can always still do better. Again, talking about crime data, simple batteries, larcenies, these are the total numbers. Each of them are broken down by the year. and you'll see, again, distribution to cause harm, false pretenses, swindling, trespasses. But again, you see the different types of calls for service, how they're related, and where the heat maps, where the majority of these are occurring. Are there any other questions on any of this before I move forward? Okay. So what do we want to do? Target enforcement's coming soon. We've heard the community. We're working with our partners, and we're going to figure out a way to make sure that people can enjoy the outside without having to deal with behavioral issues. But we're also going to stay cognizant that these are people we're dealing with. But we do have to enforce the law. So in any neighborhood, everybody has the right to feel safe in their homes. Everybody has a right to say, there are people in my alley and they're yelling, screaming, fighting, somebody's doing drugs or anything else like that. We want to respond to that. We want everybody to feel safe in their own community. So we ask anyone, any address of concern that you're aware of, there's a house there's illegal things that are going on there, let us know. And we will work for it. Again, you can do anonymous reporting. If there's somebody who needs help and resources, if you don't know who else to reach out to, nonprofit or other organizations that can help, call us. We will reach out to them and we will go there together. Okay? So we need your eyes and ears. Yes?
What would be the difference between like target enforcement and rather than like standard on?
Well, I would think target enforcement, it depends on the definition you're going to use for targeted enforcement. So I try to stay away from that one because that one has bad vibes. So target enforcement, we're just saying that we're aware of the calls for service complaints. We're aware of the crimes that have occurred there. So we're going to focus on that area and look for the behaviors. But we can also have sometimes an idea of the individuals who may be dealing with that or who may be perpetrating that. So rather than saying we're having a target enforcement that you're only going to see us on this street, that's not what you're not going to see just police cars all the time, all over the place. It's going to be a strategic focus, but we will be responding to calls in the Yuma Street, and we want to make sure people just feel safe in their community.
To clarify, I think they just said targeted enforcement because that's what you're documenting.
Oh, yeah, so then that's bad on me for putting that up there. But when I say targeted enforcement, I mean this area, we're focusing on this as a priority, but I'm not going down Yuma Street saying, well, you live on Yuma Street, you must be a bad person, we're gonna arrest you. You're pushing a shopping cart, we don't want you in the neighborhood, we want people to feel like they can, no. We're going for the bad actors and we're going for individuals whose behaviors are disruptive. There may be, if it's criminal, then we'll make arrests and investigations. If it's not, we're working on getting help.
So it's not targeted areas, it's targeted crime.
Targeted crime, yes. So my apologies on using that word. Sir.
So, so if we're looking at an area, I've been here all my life, been down here on Union Street for all my life. My mother went to school over here. My uncle, which was mayor, at home, was all back through here. So the whole nine yards. What made, I see there was a growth, a betterment of people coming together here in Manhattan. It's gotten better. And I see a betterment of the intermingling of people. So then, this target area in which you're looking at, as Yuma is still an area of focus to where it can be better by safe is a word, right?
Yeah.
It's a word. It's what all of us would love to be. But in reality, it's hard to achieve, but it takes time. And I see that in time, things have changed to a part to where it's better.
But then it's hard for those who are still broken to see anything, see that sunshine through the clouds. Because in their lives, it's still cloudy. It's still cloudy. So when you step out and you're like, man, we're gonna make everybody feel safe. Even those that, with them cloudy days, they wanna feel safe too. But how do they know how to feel safe? You say you got these things that you can bring into these programs to help and stuff. And I'm very happy with what I see. I've been in Topeka, I've seen how they take care of their homelessness and how when you can be getting ready to jack your car up and change your tires in the back of your car, right? And then somebody homeless walks by and then they're like, man, get away from a car, man. Change has to be genuine. It has to be love-driven. It has to be love-driven. Because if it's not love-driven, those that are broken and hurt will see that and know it because that's all they know. That's all they know because that's all that's been brought to them. So we got to go a little deeper, especially when we're got cameras here and we're trying to focus in and we're trying to go ahead and express what we're trying to do. All we're doing is trying to love you just a little bit more. We don't understand why or what's going on in your life, but we're there to help. Not to go ahead and take you to jail today, because your presence is there. Yuma is not, from what I've seen for the last month I've been here, it's better. It's better. I'm happy for be able because, man, I tell you, they've opened doors and made things accessible to people that were hurting. They're patient. They're patient. And they deal with things like, as you speak about and stuff like that, if we see that there's issue and everything like that, man, there's more we can do, but we need to do it in love. I know there's crimes being committed. I know people are doing things and stuff like that. They ain't saying overlook that. But how do we show that we understand that you're broken? So we're not just gonna put you in the system. We're not gonna take you to jail, put you in the system, and let the system worry about you. What we're gonna do is that we're not gonna look at the individual that was broken and say it's probably that same dude down the street that's doing the same thing that he's always done. Or the same girl that's doing the same thing, same couple that's doing the same thing. Why do they keep doing it? My answer ain't the prison systems are locking them up in jail, even though you got a little grant to help out in the jail for the mental health, right? Correct?
There is a tax dollars that we're using for reintegration coordinator down in the jail.
Let's keep doing that.
Okay. Would you mind if I respond to that? So, I think trust in any government organization is going to come from law enforcement. That's to me, that is how we treat those who need the most help. That's the measure of a community. And as I mentioned before, this is somebody's father, mother, brother, sister. That will never be lost upon us. Never be lost upon us. Everything I try to tell, or everything I do tell our group is it's love. It's nothing personal. This is the job that you're supposed to be doing. But we want to focus on the individual and how we can get the individual help, because that's what we're all about. And if we lose your trust, your community, we see this going on federally right now. I don't want to lose that. And I want you to know that that's what we're here for. So when law enforcement gets involved in these types of things, in other communities that I've been in, it's a don't talk to us, we have a law enforcement thing to do. We have an integral part to play in how somebody gets better or if we make their situation worse. And we don't want to make anybody's situation worse. Sometimes what someone needs is a word of reassurance. Maybe it's the 20th time that they hear it. But sometimes if it comes from a law enforcement officer or corrections officer or somebody who really cares, I was told not to swear, but somebody who really cares, then that genuineness comes out. Then that trust comes out. Then somebody can say, okay, I can let down those defenses and I can see if I can do something better. That's what we're trying to do. So when we go into communities and we're working through the neighborhoods, it's not, we're not gonna knock on the door and just say, hey, code enforcement, you got 5 cars out here, something like that, or you need something with the fence. We're gonna knock on doors and say, hey, we notice your fence is a little low. Can we work with some nice fence? Can we come down to the neighborhood and can we have a block club party with folks so you can feel like you're back part of that community, you feel that you're safe walking up and down your street? That's what we're trying to do. And that's, we can only do so much as law enforcement, but we can filter out calls that make people uncomfortable from calls that need a legitimate law enforcement response. I'm sorry, you.
I was wondering, what are measures and steps that RCPD has taken in the last 5 or so years that, in de-escalation and the ability to, because it's easy to say, but to physically come at a hard situation with empathy? Are there trainings going on, things like that? And
So the gist of it is it's, let's see, how far down the rabbit hole do I want to go? I want to tell you that in law enforcement in Kansas, I've been to a couple states, there's a genuineness in training. So it starts with an overall culture of law enforcement in the state. You go to the academy. In the academy, the emphasis is help people, you have a sworn oath to protect people, that's the emphasis. Then when you come out of that all shiny, bright, and new and looking to try to do good, positive change in the world, if you come into a culture that doesn't subscribe to that, that's all out the window. When you come into the Riley County Police Department, that is the norm, not the exception. So we do things like CIT training. We do a lot of, which is crisis intervention team training. So when you're dealing with somebody who has mental health, is in a mental health crisis, how do you de-escalate the situation? How do you not criminalize what's going on? How do you get that person help? So it's all empathy-based. So all of our trainings revolve around restraint and working with the individual that's there. So I can tell you all the different trainings that we're doing, but unfortunately, unless you see it in action, that's the only way that I can tell you the trainings, but you can say, yeah, that's nice, but I need to kind of see it. But I can tell you personally, if my mother was here having an issue, if my brother was here and he was suicidal, there are people in other departments that I've been at, and I'm like, oh God, don't let it be John, because they're just going to make the situation worse. I would trust any one of these officers to respond to my daughter in need. And that is I have the chance to make my community better. When you wake up in the morning, we were talking about our community advisory board meeting, when you wake up in the morning, you say, man, somebody ought to do something about that. When I wake up in the morning, I say, I need to do something about that. And I need to do it in the best way possible, remembering people are human beings. Did that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you said, I'm sorry, I have a question. You said you guys have training and stuff like that, and your trainings with empathy. What about people that are on drugs? Because I hear you saying mental illness, but I don't hear you saying about training with addicts, you know? Is law enforcement trained on how to deal with addicts, or how to deal with people that are using, you know, addicts, you know? Because I just hear you saying mental illness, but I don't hear you saying addicts.
Well, they are different. It's fine. They are different, but to me, it's ultimately the same thing.
Okay.
It's a de-escalation. It's somebody who, you're not dealing with the right person. You're dealing with somebody else who has a crutch,
Right.
and this has altered who they are. And you have to remember that person's a human being. So when they drive you to the nth degree because their behavior is, they're high on something, That doesn't mean that you beat them. That doesn't mean you treat them like crap. That doesn't mean that you deny them anything else like that. You still have to hold them accountable for it. But as soon as we get you to jail, if that's where you're supposed to go, our correction staff are going to reach out and say, how can we get you help? How can we talk to people? If it's spiritual or faith, how can we bring them in here? How can we get you treatment? How can we do all those other things? And then work with our partners to try to give that person a leg up. They've already hitting rock bottom. We don't need to bury them underneath the police department. So that's how we look at it. Yes.
I think that nowadays a lot of people are like customer service reps. A lot of them I see, you can tell when they're there just to gain a paycheck. Okay? Is there any kind of average that you could say that police officers here in Raleigh County is there an average that you know of the officers that have done something for, let's say, the homeless or, mental problem people? Or is there an average of police officers that you know of that have done something, as they drive by out of uniform and say, hey, this person, look at them, they need help.
I hear what you're saying.
Help, or does it take a uniform for them to help? I think that's the difference between a uniform and someone who genuinely cares about another person, whether they're homeless or on drugs or, I don't think the average would be as high as it should be to make a difference.
I couldn't give you a number on that one. I can tell you that when those things happen, we have a system that we track attaboys, if you will. This person did this person did that. The majority of law enforcement folks are like, hey, I'm gonna put you in a guardian tracker because you did something great. They're gonna get mad at you. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. And I don't know how else I can tell you this to get your belief. The only thing I can tell you is that's what honestly happens internally. The biggest thing I think everyone who comes into law enforcement or first response, whether it's animal control, whether it's corrections, whether it's admin, whether it's the sworn officers on the street, they come in wanting to really help people. You have to have that with you. The danger is when you deal with so much negativity, a person will tend to dehumanize other people. And that's something that we're especially on guard for. So we do have peer support. We do have EAP programs. We always do have those straight up conversations, even with supervisors on an annual basis, and early warning systems that if we see one person who has been on the job X amount of years, we can look at research and say, okay, officers between the years of 7 and 15 are going to be more prone to this, that. We're looking at complaints from the community. We're looking at use of force incidences. We're looking at all those and we're like, okay, somebody needs a timeout and somebody needs to be re-energized, or you don't belong here in this department.
Do you have a number for excess use of force?
Do we have a number for excess?
Number, like a percentage of incidents?
So when we have use of force incidences, they go through 7, and I'm sorry, I'm going to kind of go down a little bit down of a rabbit hole. There's 7 points of review. It's going to be that person's immediate supervisor. It's going to go to that watch commander. It's going to go to the training officer. It's going to go through the deputy director. It's going to come to me. And so we have body-worn cameras. So we'll take into the totality of everything that happened, and we'll determine if the use of force was in accordance with training and policy or if it isn't. Now, this comes back to that issue of legitimacy. If you all don't trust me, then nothing I tell you, no policies, no processes, none of that stuff is going to mean anything to you because I don't have your trust. So the only thing I can hope for is to be honest with you and to tell you that we hold people accountable. So since I've been here, we have not had any serious use of force incidences or excessive use of force incidences. As a matter of fact, it's in our policy. If an officer observed another officer escalating the situation, they are supposed to stop it. I'll give you one quick example of it, and believe me if you want to or not. I was out there in Aggieville, me, the chief of police, There was one person who was drunk. He was running his mouth left and right. I'm not going to make excuses for myself, but I got into a back and forth with him. It wasn't even your mama this, your mama that. It wasn't. It was just still responding to him when I could have just said, I'm going to do my thing. An officer, not a corporal, not a sergeant, not a lieutenant, not a major, a regular officer on the street pushed me back and walked up to that person and talked to him and de-escalated the situation. And I'm the chief of police. And if I sit up there and say, oh my God, you can't do that to me, I'm the chief of police, I don't need to be wearing this uniform. Because in reality of it is, if I let something escalate and get out of control, that officer just saved me from going to jail. That officer saved me from going home and saying, honey, I lost my job, I don't know what we're gonna do. But that's how we look after each other.
These days, honey, I just shot this dude, and this is how it is. A lot of people are conspiracy theorists, and they don't know, especially when the changes come. You know, when the changes come, even if it's for the better, they don't know because they're broken still. You have those that roll in, that the lives are great, and they roll into the areas where there's problems, where there's dots everywhere and stuff like that. And a lot of times, a person can view that and see that as though they're only down here to protect them. Don't they still see me? I'm still broken. I'm still hurting. I'm still existing in my community that everybody else just came down. They just came down to protect the people here. What about me? I'm hurting. So then, have you thought about making it known? I mean, it's still words.
No, we will be out, like I said, when we come out to the neighborhood, that's what we're going to be looking to help. And we do need, a lot of people think they're lucky stars, they don't have to deal with us on a daily basis. When we do have to deal with somebody, we look for the opportunity to help that person and to help their family. So it's one of those things that, and again, law enforcement may not be the right avenue to help that person deal with what they're dealing with. But the part we play is crucial in not making their situation worse than what it already is. So we need to have that trauma informed. We need to be trauma informed to realize that. But we also, that's when we reach out to Deb and say, Deb, this is going on with this person. How can we help them? And then we can spread the word throughout the department. Whoever lives at 100 Street Alpha, they've got it tough. And how do we help them through that? Again, like even with our fundraiser for Christmas, the FOP, they reach out and based on the calls for service, they ask each other, hey, on the calls for service, which families were in the most need? And then we raise money, and then they raise money internally, giving money out of their paycheck so we can do Shop with a Cop. So they do a lot of that already. It's just you'll never see it. Yes.
So do you all have, you just kind of answered my question just a little bit right there, but you all have where you can let the people know, like the gentleman over here was saying, like the broken people know that, do y'all have it where you can advertise it, make it kind of mainstream to let people know that if they need that type of help, if it's mental or what have you, how are you all putting that out into the like the venues like this and what you just talked about? Also, do you have other ways that people can say, I heard about that on the radio or a billboard or something like that?
So we do we do reach out to the community through social media. We are working on a more aggressive campaign.
Right.
Part of so there's two ways to do it. Again, there's ways to keep that fire alive. So for example, Major Asher, Corporal Peete, some of the other team are going to go down to community table tomorrow to serve. Okay. I've been at community table to serve. I've been at community table to sign people up for the Affordable Care Act. Okay. So if it can come from me, It doggone well can come from everybody else within the department. But that's part of the other issue, that we need people's eyes and ears, and how can you reach out to the community? Because some folks may not be comfortable if it's like the police show up and say, hey, they may be more prone, but we need to earn that trust from you. So we will have that visibility. Yes, sir.
Okay, so, I don't wanna shift like the topic, I think this is a good time to bring it up. When we're talking about making the neighborhood safe, part of the advertisement for this town hall was about ICE. So I wondered if we were gonna, yeah, cause I don't want to lose, like, we're getting real close to the end of it.
Okay. So yes, that will be the next thing I'm talking about. So to close this up, when do you call and ask for help? If you don't know where else to turn or who else to turn to, you can call us. We will know the people who's in a better position to get that person help. And if they're arrested, if they're under our care, we will work as hard as we can to get them help. So dial 911, life or death situations. If you don't know where you are, something's wrong, dial 911. It's exigency. Or you can call our non-emergency number, and then we can point you to the resources. You can even send me an email. I've had people just send me emails, and I'll email it out to the appropriate people in the department, and we reach out to our partners, and we get folks help. So if you see something, say something, but hopefully you say it with the feel that the Riley County Police Department is going to treat someone as a human being. So segue, that is in no way, shape, or form Brian Peete saying anything else that other law enforcement agencies don't do that. So I will transition over to ICE.
Thank you.
The Riley County Police Department does not enforce immigration law, okay? We have no control over other agencies coming within the jurisdiction. We are not part of the 287G program. The 287G program, I don't know do I need to quickly summarize that? 287G program is a program that says there's essentially two aspects of it. There's one aspect that says our corrections is involved in direct access with Customs and Immigration databases, that if somebody has an administrative warrant, then we will hold them for ICE. And then there's another part of the 287G program that says we will contribute officers to be deputized by ICE to assist in removal operations. We are not part of that, okay? We have very, very strong relationships with our federal partners. HSI, FBI, we have very, very strong relationships with them. So when there are investigative things that come, they will let us know that they're coming into the jurisdiction. We have a serious felony situation. Can you help us with this investigation? Some agencies are not under any obligation to let us know if they're coming into the jurisdiction. So if we don't know, we can't assist them or anything else to that effect. So, yes, sir.
Minneapolis Police Chief Brian Peete as recently as today has come out to say that his police officers will be willing to arrest and charge ICE agents when they are committing acts of violence and harming their communities. Given what we've seen on a national scale and specifically in Minneapolis, would you qualify that some of ICE's actions would constitute that targeted violence that we talked about at the beginning of this event?
So let me hit that question. I'm going to be political in that answer. The Riley County Police Department, again, as I mentioned to you, we have a policy that if we see any type of excessive force being used, we intervene. That goes for any different situation. I can't jump on hypotheticals, but I can tell you that our hope would be we would be there to help de-escalate any situation as possibly as we can. The other part of, will I go on record? I'm sorry, what was the part that you were saying to quantify what those remarks are? Would we make arrests?
Based on what we've seen, do you believe that some of ICE's actions constitute targeted violence?
I believe some of the things that I've seen are troubling. Very troubling to me. So I will say with the same thing, I will give you a clarifier that I don't know everything that happened, but I can tell you that they were troubling. And I can tell you that the Riley County Police doesn't do that, and we don't tolerate that. Yes.
You already somewhat answered part of my question, like to a degree, I would say. But with all of the protests going on in Minnesota, majority of them have been peaceful, and they have it is legal to follow ICE and blow whistles. It's legal to protest. It is legal to carry a gun within, if you are following all the rules of what the county and state says, and you're meeting all those requirements, it is legal. If ICE comes to Manhattan and they're throwing flashbangs or green smoke into the crowd, will RCPD be there to protect the peaceful protesters and de-escalate ICE from coordinating like those attacks on protesters?
So I will tell you that, again, I'm gonna be flat out and give you a political answer on this one. That's a hypothetical situation. But to say that it hasn't crossed my mind, I'd be lying to you if I told you that. I would tell you we have internal discussions on what those procedures would look like. Again, if an organization came into the jurisdiction and didn't give us the professional courtesy to let us know that we were there, we would prefer, because I hope I earn your trust for legitimacy for the department. I hope that you would believe me when I say the Riley County Police Department officers will protect people and their constitutional rights. So my hope would be that any organization that comes to our jurisdiction would let us know so we can help facilitate whatever they're trying to do and maintain peace while allowing people to do their constitutional rights. Our duty is to protect the citizens, our sworn oath to protect the citizens of Riley County.
Would you let it happen? Would you let it happen? If they came up in here beating and stomping and getting ready to try to shoot, would you go ahead and intervene and step in between them and say, no, it doesn't happen here? This is not the Big Apple. This is the Little Apple. Would you let it happen? That's the question, really. Would you let it happen?
No, we are sworn.
Or would you stop them?
We are.
Or would you say something?
We are.
Contradictory to what
We are sworn to.
they're trying to do.
We are sworn to protect the citizens of this state and the Riley County Police Department, and we will enforce the citizens and community members.
So you stop it.
So if we see officers that are doing excessive force,
Even excessive force, if they take from your community,
Tear gas.
like you see every place else. I mean, they had to remove the dude, send him back up along the border in California. Would you, knowing that the potential of them going a little too far with your community,
Don't try
your
to paint him
family, your
into the
new
corner. He
family?
gave you the best and straightest answer
Yeah.
that he
Not
did.
the straightest answer,
But
but
it
the
is
safest
also a
but
fair
answer.
I can't.
It's also a fair answer.
I can't deal in hypotheticals. But what I can tell you is I am disturbed by a lot of the things I've seen. We don't do those tactics. In that we have had situations in Aggieville, big fights in Aggieville, and there are individuals who are saying, don't arrest her, don't arrest him, don't arrest him. We don't throw flashbangs at them. We don't just mace everybody to move the crowds back. We work to de-escalate those situations. And those are the tactics that's what we do by policy, and that's what we hold everybody else accountable to by policy.
And the same stands true with an organization.
Any organization that comes into our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so, I think earlier, you said some stuff that I really liked when we were talking about keeping the community safe. You talked a lot about legitimacy, about community trust, and some things that I wanted to kind of remark on that is that Manhattan has, so I'm not from Kansas originally, I'm not from Manhattan originally, I grew up in southern Missouri, and I lived kind of a weird, rough life. I was homeless a lot, and so I had a lot of really, really aggressive, unfortunate altercations with police when, even being a very young child. RCPD functions in a way that I have never seen another law enforcement agency function. There is a lot of community trust here. Even from before you came, the organizers of the Black Lives Matter George Floyd protest here invited RCPD to come. They spoke at our rally. I was there, I was not one of the organizers. They spoke at the rally, they marched with the protesters, they cried. You know what I mean? There were officers there in tears in response to some of the police brutality that they had witnessed. We do not have, to RCPD's credit, we do not have the types of use of force cases here. I think that what you say when you talk about the de-escalation training, when you talk about how there's a lot of extra accountability built into RCPD and how that's the norm, not the exception. I think that's all very true. I work at MESI, and I see that every day when people are interacting with my clients. When RCPD interacts with my clients are not scared. They are not aggressive usually. They are not reacting from a place of trauma when they're interacting with RCPD because there's so much trust built up between RCPD and the members of this community. I have a very real fear that if ICE came in to this community, masked, unaccountable, not wearing badges, claiming to be law enforcement, that it would fracture irreparably the trust that RCPD has with this community. And I think that it would genuinely put your officers in a lot of danger.
So-
Especially if it came out that there was cooperation. Like genuinely, I think that all of the rapport and the incredible work that has been done to build community rapport here would just evaporate.
Trust, I'm sorry.
And, like, when you say, like, the measure of a community is in how we treat those who need the most help, I think that does apply to our migrant community, to folks who are documented, to folks who are undocumented, to people who are incredibly vulnerable in these positions. It would really, really be a shame. I do think that Manhattan is a good community. Like you said, Manhattan is an incredible place. Manhattan has a lot of people who care about each other. The Wellness Coalition, the way that we're able to put together these sorts of organizations that can do wraparound services, there's so much community buy-in from every single individual in this town. I think that what we're gonna find is that the community will defend each other even if everything else goes to shit. Even if everything else goes by the wayside, I think that what we're gonna end up finding is that the community will band together to protect each other. And it would be really, really nice if RCPD was there with the community as opposed to.
There is no question that, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, you're fine, absolutely.
There is no question, I'm just going to say some acknowledgments. There's no question that what ICE has done has made our job extraordinarily
I
difficult.
believe that.
And it's not just me, it's chiefs across the country that are grappling with the same thing. On one end, you don't want to, those are supposedly your brothers and sisters in blue. But you're not supposed to put another family member in that kind of light. Trust and legitimacy, anyone can come into this community outside of a jurisdiction, they will leave. The Riley County Police Department is here. We hope we are part of this community. Trust takes years to get, seconds to lose. All those years before I got here, and hopefully anything that I'm doing to add on to that, I'm not going to lose that, and I'm not willing to lose that. My sworn oath is to protect the community members, the citizens of the Riley County Police Department. And that's what the Riley County Police Department will do. Yes.
So, on that note, has there been any discussions about what RCPD will do if they find out that ICE is coming? Will they warn the community? Will they put out a statement? Will we find out before it's too late?
So it's a very good question. So I'll say lawfully, again, if we ever find out, we can't divulge any type of investigative. That's it. There's a safety reason. There's a whole bunch of different protocols that are involved into things like that, which is why letting us know if you're coming into the community is of great help for us, because we can help de-escalate certain situations, or we can figure out the best way to arrest someone or to detain someone that they need to do. Okay, so we can't divulge that information. But as I mentioned to you before, we've had our internal conversations and discussions on how we would deal, because I would almost imagine that someone would call the Riley County Police Department to say that something's going on. We would encourage anyone in the room, and we will protect your amendment, your constitutional amendments, your rights to do what you need to do. I also urge you, when you exercise those rights, keep them by the letter of the law. Don't infringe on what ICE is doing, and I'm not saying anyone who does deserves whatever they get. That's nothing. I'm not saying that. Just saying observe those things so we can all work together to get through this.
Is there a way we can connect with you if we do see something done by ICE that is illegal or troubling in any kind?
If you see any crime going on in the community or anything that you believe to be a crime, you can absolutely report it to the Riley County Police Department. We will investigate it to the best of our ability in conjunction with other law enforcement agencies. Yes.
I know you said earlier that the Riley County Police Department isn't a part of the 287G program right now, but about a year ago, I think there was only like 2 or 4 counties in Kansas who were part of it, and now there's more than 10 counties, maybe even 15 counties in Kansas who have now, like, there's like 4 different steps that you can be a part of that are now at least one of the steps, acting like basically as ICE agents, and then there's like, I'm pretty sure 2 holding facilities in Kansas, so it's like, feels as if they're revving up. Can you like say with confidence that, I know you said that you're currently not, but you also said that you have strong ties with federal agencies or whatever that was alluding to. Can you say with confidence that you can promise that you won't ever be a part of the 287G program, because it is becoming a trend in Kansas?
Even if I wanted to, I don't even have the manpower to do it.
You don't, but maybe like
You as a person.
anything in you, yeah, you as a person, anything in your power.
The 287G program is something I have no intention or I have no capacity to be part of.
Okay, so you have no one.
Are there any undercover ICE agents that you know of?
No, sir. Him right there with the glasses. No, I would not know that answer.
Yes, I believe what most of us are afraid about is our community members, like our family, non-blood family members, community family members, and like our neighbors being disappeared and taken off the streets just by suspicion. Like, I know I'm sitting in a place of privilege as a white woman, but I have seen in other cities just people of color being taken out of their workplaces, being taken in an unmarked car, beaten up, and dropped off somewhere. That puts me at fear for my community members' safety and even my safety out walking my dog alone, because these are ICE agents are people who are not passing background checks, they're not passing drug tests, they can't even read the paperwork to be able to become an ICE agent, and they're being put out in the fields. That makes it terrifying for our community members, and I agree with the person back there whose name I don't know, that we do very much trust RCPD. I know I've had a lot of run-ins growing up for mental health reasons, but seeing the turmoil in this country, it does make us worried about how RCPD will respond. You do say that you will protect us, but we want to make sure that 5-year-olds aren't being used as bait for family members.
So that's again, it's the federal enforcement is not part of what we do. It's not part of anything that we intend or ever plan on doing. Our goal is to work through community trust. We respond and help anyone, regardless of sex, race, sexual preference, immigration status, anything else like that. Our job is to keep this community safe, and to do that, we need your help, and to get your help, we need your trust. We don't enforce immigration. I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say to the community of Manhattan, like if push comes to shove and you start to, or you or we or us start to peacefully protest, that I see a lot of escalation starts to happen when you start to obstruct. And that's when people start to get hurt. And then fingers start to get pointed at each other, at the different organizations, or the community at the organization at the community. So I would, for safety reasons, for the love of the community, you see this, they're doing something they're not supposed to do. He says, call him. Do not obstruct, because that's only putting yourself out of safety and others out of safety.
If the person is being detained, people doing the detaining do not produce a signed warrant, does that qualify as kidnapping?
So the answer, you're asking if someone's detained, there are lawful reasons people can be detained. So I'm assuming you're talking about if ICE comes into no one can come into your home unless they have a judicial warrant.
But they're breaking
But
in.
if you don't know that they are who they are, and they're doing that, can they do that?
According-
Do they have to
accord-
give you acknowledgement of who they are?
So there are two different warrants, two different types of warrants. There can be, from ICE, there's an administrative warrant, and there's a judicial warrant. You have curtilage, you have your home, you cannot be arrested. Last time I checked the law, you need a judicial warrant to go into someone's house to do something. The Riley County Police Department adheres to the law.
What about cars?
Cars, well, depends. There's a lot of depends on that different type of situation.
I think by cars he means maybe like how an officer, like maybe an ICE officer trying to rip someone out of their car by demanding them to come out. Do they have
Do they have to come out of their car?
I'd say if it were me, I would go along with it, and then hope and trust into the system that, again, and that's where that legitimacy comes from. I know that some people are going to be like, that still doesn't work for me, but you'll make that situation worse by fighting with them, and you give somebody else here's what I tell anyone I love and know. Don't ever give anyone the opportunity to exert power over you. So don't make it easier for someone to do something to you. I'm not saying that's what they're doing in certain situations. I'm just saying that you would put yourself in more trouble if you did that. Yes, ma'am.
Short end of that, I have two questions. I appreciate your position and the communication that you had about the expectation that if an RCPD officer sees a fellow officer committing excessive force or violating your policy, breaking the law, it is an expectation that they will stop it and that they will report it within their chain of command.
Yes.
You shared that with us. And I think I agree with Amanda. There's a lot of trust in this community, and RCPD has earned that trust. And I think in their day-to-day operations, that's there. How though, what we are seeing right now in regards to immigration is that everything that we thought we knew is up in the air. We didn't think that we would have people with masks on, you've got your name on your shirt. We know who you are. So there's a lot of uncertainty in that. So how, as the director, are you, and you've talked about it at the department, or you've talked about it internally, I'm assuming that that's at the more supervisory level or at the administrative level. How has that position, has it been communicated from top to bottom? From you to number 2 to number 100 and whatever number you're at right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a second question.
Yes, so to answer that question, yeah, there's that layer of expectation. So Aaron and I, the deputy director, and I have spoken with investigations and with the patrol division commanders. They're going to be getting together with the lieutenants, and then they're going to be getting together with the sergeants. One of my expectations is that I mentioned to them, if certain situations happen, call me, and there should be a sergeant on that scene. And that's how that's the first initial and first step, and how do we work to de-escalate anything that may come up.
Some collective time to have that communication with whoever,
Mhm.
that they feel equipped to know what the expectation is and what that is.
I think what our ask of Major Hayek was, so when they reach out to the lieutenants and they try to figure something out, they're going to have some you need buy-in in any organization. And they're going to need to hear the input and get the buy-in from the sergeants, because the sergeants are going to be the one who are out there commanding the scene.
Because your officers, they are also people.
Yes.
And they have, like anybody else in any other community, you've got a lot of different opinions,
Mhm.
or their personal opinions, and then a professional expectations, and you're layering those two things in each other.
Mhm.
So I just think that part of what this community is asking is how are you making sure that those two things are being specifically addressed in today's role? So thank you.
Mhm.
My second question kind of rolls back a little bit to your question about the average number of times, or how are officers intervening to help. And I would say, I agree 100%, our officers do a lot. They do a lot of extra. Like, it is not uncommon if they go into a home where there's not food, that later on that day there will be food, or that there's a car seat needed, or like, they do those things on a routine basis. I think part of what you were asking though is, are they doing it because they've got the uniform on? And what do our officers do outside of their uniform time that gives back to the community and engaging
That
with
would
the
gain
community?
a
And I
lot
think
of
that's hard for
time.
you to measure,
It-
because it's happening outside.
It is. It is, and at the same time, it's also extra. It's also an extracurricular thing. But what I can tell you is that, so the way I look at it is from two different points. You're getting someone who comes in, and who we will be able to have faith that they're not going to tarnish the reputation that we came in with. So, are we hiring somebody who is going to be part of the norm rather than the exception? So that's the first part of it, and then the second part is just to maintain that. Systematically, what I can do and what we are doing is, when we look at things like promotion, part of some of those considerations can be weighted to asking people, what are you doing in the community? How are you giving back? And so there are weighted issues that even go into performance evaluations, because we're revamping those as well. So those expectations, I mean, we can't make someone do something extra outside of the office, but in my experience, those are the things that re-energize your batteries when you help somebody and when you give back. And that's what makes going through the sludge bearable to do it again next week. So I will push them to that.
Actual question.
Mm-hmm.
What is the police department doing to make it easier for officers to engage in those activities off duty or outside? What is the department's responsibility? Because we know that it's better for the officer's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to prevent burnout. It's better for their longevity as officers. And what is the department's role in, yes, it's their personal time, but is there ways that the department is looking at that as an officer health or morale
That would
or
gain a lot of
well-being?
Yeah, we do. So once a month, we have a statistics meeting, if you will. And throughout those conversations, and then we also do have the peer support group. So once a month, I meet with all the staff, or with the senior staff. We invite all the officers to come to it, and then we go over a series of metrics. Part of those metrics are something along the lines of early warning systems. So if we're seeing someone's got low arrests, or they're using all their vacation time, or they're not using their vacation time. So it's a bunch of different things that we look into it, and then we can ask, how do we get that person help, and how are we working with peer support? The other part, so there's two other parts to that. The other one would be with peer support. So I know that after bad situations occur, deaths, especially when they revolve around kids, bad accidents, anything else to that effect, the peer support rallies those people and says, we're all meeting together, to include the dispatchers. And they come together to do that. The other part of it is I have an amazing amount of trust in the sergeants, that the sergeants are going to know their people way better than I would. And if the sergeants see something or have a concern to it, I know they really care about their folks. So they would reach out, or we would encourage other officers to reach out. And once we become aware of it, or once I become aware of it, I'm not looking to fire anybody. I'm looking to get somebody help. So I have to work on that internal trust so that people will know if you have an issue, it's okay to raise your hand and say, I'm suffering from depression, I'm suffering from this, I'm suffering from that, and know that the department will take care of you rather than the department will try to kick you out. So I want to make sure we push that message out to as many people as possible. Yes.
So, let me say this, you know, we have officers, now I retired from the police department, but we have officers that during their free time contribute and do things for others outside. They don't report what they do. Sometimes people will send letters back and they'll think, they'll send it through the administrator's office and they will report something that somebody has done good for them. The public doesn't, but the public doesn't get to hear about that. Everybody doesn't do that. You have several officers that go to church, and so hear me out. And because they go to church, part of that teaching, because my husband and I serve in pastoral ministry, and now outside of that, just ministry. And part of the teaching in the church culture, that if you have done something good for somebody, you don't go and tell the good that you have done because you have already received your reward. But your Heavenly Father in heaven sees what you have done. So you don't go back and advertise, hey, I saw this homeless person and guess what I did? I went and did blah, 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 blah. So they may never tell what good they have done to serve anybody else. And so you may never get to hear it if you wonder whether or not they have done something to be a blessing to anybody else. So sometimes you may not never know what some of these officers, correction staff, dispatchers, records clerk, and these other people, what they're doing on their free time besides seeing about their families or resting or whatever, because they don't advertise it in that way. That does not mean that they're not given to the community. Now, there may be some that need to do something else to get out there and do that. But I'm just saying this with regards to that part of the aspect, that there are some that you may never hear about, but there are letters that do come in where people do report and say, hey, this has been done and we really appreciate it. And then there are others, because of their spiritual walk, that it is just customarily taught that if you have done something good for somebody, hey, you don't go and advertise that, because then your reward is already given, because you just said it. God blesses you for the works that you've done.
And if I can, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
That's what I had said, though. That's why I said, you know, what do they do outside the uniform?
Yeah, so we may not
To
always
build
know.
a trust with individuals in the community.
Yeah,
That would build trust, like you said. It's not to.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
expect
we may not
anything to
know.
be
We may
Yeah,
not know, because the reads of as many people are
we
employed.
encourage folks to be out there, to be part of the community. And then, and in addition to that, as you had mentioned, that was one of the other things, part of our strategic plan and goal is we always will look out for our officers and that commitment to mental health and acknowledging substance abuse. So we're also looking at a first agents or a first responder just wellness, that they have safe spaces to talk about anything they may be coping with, whether it's addiction, mental health, or anything else like that. Our first response to that is going to be help, not how do I terminate.
It's gonna be a hard battle, because what you're facing is this: you say trust you, you're asking us to close our eyes and fall backwards. That's how long of a time it's gonna take a little while. Yes, let's close our eyes and fall.
I'd fall freely if out of uniform.
Oh, I hear you. I have to earn that trust.
I will start to fall, you know, but I'm gonna catch myself first. I'm just saying, I mean,
Yes.
but they're good, I mean,
Yeah.
they've come a long way. I
Yeah.
have too.
So, I'm gonna say this in the right way, so bear with me, because I phrase this in my head. And I hardly know any of you in this room. I live on the west expectation and making the assumption, which is maybe a completely wrong expectation, that everyone in this room wants RCPD to uphold the law. He's made it clear, I think he's made it clear, that their job is not to uphold federal law, but their job is also not to impede federal law. And that's the balance, or the difficulty that he's got and all the officers have. If ICE comes to the community to do their job, to remove people who they believe or have been told, because they probably don't know them, have been told that they have broken the law, even though you all may not agree that they broke the law, that's not really our decision.
Illegally, yeah, right.
At least I get the sense that we all may have different expectations of whether or not a law is to be enforced or not enforced. And that's the difficulty, because their job, even though you say protect and serve Riley County, remember, it's Riley County law enforcement, which is your primary job, to enforce the law. And you don't convict, you just arrest, and then the courts figure it out. But I think we have to keep that in mind, that their job is to enforce the law. They're probably officers who don't agree with some of the laws, or the ordinances, whatever you want to call them. But as I understand it, you're sworn to uphold state law, local law. Maybe there's some federal laws, I don't know, but for the most time, I assume it's not ICE, but from what you said. But that's your focus. And as you enforce law, you are protecting and serving the community. But I think there are people who don't want you to enforce the law. And that's a core problem. Or pick and choose which laws you need to enforce and not enforce, and that's a problem. Just a comment, not a question.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, and I'm sorry, I think I think the community conversation has ended, but I'm staying here till whenever to answer any additional questions that folks may have. But yes. Yeah, for it. Yeah, look, I don't need any more cheese. Okay. Are there anything else? Well, thank you all very much for coming. Really appreciate you.